Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well this evening. Tonight I've got 3 horrifying Dogman encounters that I'd like to share with you. Before we get into those encounters, I've got a couple of links I'd like to share with you. First is my Patreon and my PayPal link. They're in the description below. They help keep this channel commercial free and continue going. Also, my merch link is in the description. I am going to be putting out new merchandise. I apologize for the delay. It's taken me a little bit. Also, my second channel's link is in the description. That channel is just about creepypastas, fanfiction, and voice acting. If that's anything you're into, guys, go on over and give that a support. And with that, let's get on to these encounters, shall we, guys? Our first Dogman encounter of the evening comes to us from Wise River, Montana. A humid summer evening in July of 2015, around 11:30 p.m. I live alone in this remote location and I don't have cable, so my only option is satellite TV. It was a humid summer night in July and the TV was acting up, so I needed to go out and readjust the satellite like usual. I took a flashlight and a gun with me. When I went outside, I noticed it was unusually quiet. I also purchased an AR due to the other sightings I have had, but they weren't as credible as this, to chalk up as a Dogman. Like so silent it was unnerving. I brushed the thought off and went to the dish, which is in the corner of my yard. I went to work making sure all the wires were all right and pointed it to a different angle. Suddenly I heard a small snap of a stick to my left and turned the flashlight to the direction, and I saw the creature standing there. I got a good look at it for what seemed like an eternity, but was about 10 seconds. I slowly backed off and ran back to the house and locked all the doors and windows. The creature was unlike anything I had ever seen before. When I shined the light at it, the first thing I saw was its head. It had cropped ears that pointed upwards. Its snout was narrower than a bear's and longer. I could make out large teeth protruding from its jaw. Its eyes were a deep red shade that seemed to reflect off the light I was pointing at it. The body was muscular and huge. It had long arms that appeared to be longer than its legs, broad shoulders that tapered into a skinnier waist. It was slightly crouched over when I saw it, with one hand wrapped around a small tree. I could make out the legs, which looked similar to a dog's legs. Even with the crouched position, it was still about my height, which is 6 foot. Standing up full height, this creature could have easily been 7.5 feet. The fur was black and thicker around the neck and chest, and the bottom half significantly less. I don't know if it was aggressive or not. What I know is I had a feeling of dread unlike anything I have ever experienced. Was it just observing me or stalking me? For a creature this large to be that silent, it got 15 yards from me without me even noticing. All I knew was I needed to get out of there and didn't want to find out. I don't live on that property anymore, but after the event, I never had another face-to-face. But I'd hear sounds in the woods I couldn't explain. They would start off relatively quiet and work their way up to a furious howl or a scream, then back down to quiet again. I don't know if this was the same thing because it could have been just the local wildlife. Our second Dogman encounter of the evening. So, I've done a lot of cryptid research and I have yet to find anything that sounds exactly like what my friends and I used to call the white thing. I grew up in rural Pennsylvania and a big group of us used to hang out at a friend's parents' house. His dad was a doctor, so they had a huge house deep in the woods, so we would spend basically every day and night there. Everyone knew about the white thing, and honestly, just hearing about it scared me so much I hated walking to my car at night. The woods just seemed real odd. I'd never personally seen it, but I wasn't allowed to spend as much time there as most of the other kids, but I trusted what they told me. They always talked about the white thing, as they called it, and described it as about 7 to 8 feet tall, pure white, humanoid body type. It could run extremely fast. Everyone who had seen it encountered it a few times, but was never able to get a great look at it because the minute it was spotted, it would run back into the woods. The weirdest encounter was when the family's aunt went on vacation once she left her tiny dog to stay at the house while she was gone. It was a real nice dog, and she hung around and played with us the week she was there. She never strayed too far from the lawn and was obviously trained. One night she went out to use the bathroom on the yard and she never came back. They found her collar and everyone assumed the white thing ate her. No one ever really talked about her again. The strange thing was, when I was in college, I was interviewed by a man writing a book. He wrote about myths and legends of Pennsylvania. We were talking about this road from the same area of the small town I was from, about 800 people, that has a lot of typical scary legends around it. After we were done, we were just chatting, and he said he had come across a few old reports of a werewolf in the town from the early 1900s, I think. He asked me if I had ever heard of anything like that, and I told him about the white thing. And he seemed a little surprised, but that's as far as the conversation went. I moved away and don't really visit there much or talk to any of those people anymore, but I wonder if it still exists, or if it ever did, or it was just a story from a bunch of kids about something that they just all believed in. Also, my interview was never included in any of the books, and I was a little disappointed. Sorry if this was lengthy, but I was just wondering if anyone had any similar experiences. Maybe it was an albino Dogman. Our third and final encounter of the evening. Now, this encounter is definitely not a Dogman, but it is some sort of cryptid, and it literally scared me reading it, so I thought I'd share it with you guys. I hope you guys enjoy this one. When I was a child, I would get sent to my grandmother's house on school holidays. She lived directly across from a sugarcane field. My uncle and cousins lived in Innsvale, where my uncle would leave my cousins at our grandmother's house as well so we could play. We regularly played in the cane field. When the cane was fully grown, we could play hide and seek, tag, and race each other through the cane, often with our arms up protecting our faces. A few times we thought we could hear someone else running with us. One day we were walking through the cane, talking about nothing important, when we thought we saw another kid in the distance of the cane. We called out to them, but they looked at us. When we got closer, we saw it was certainly not a person, but this bizarre and pale-looking humanoid thing. It turned to us, not necessarily in a threatening way, yet we didn't know what it was, so we ran away. A few days later, Grandma went to work one evening, leaving my cousins and I alone at the house. One of my cousins went outside for some reason, but came back crying. We asked her what was wrong, and she said there was something crouched behind the wheelie bin growling at her. We all decided to check it out. The thing was there again, but now you could see it better. It was definitely a very skinny and abnormally long arms, with hands past its knees. It was hairless, no genitals or nipples, but was definitely naked, sort of like a sickly Ken doll. It had a nose that was basically two slits, like Lord Voldemort's. It had big but purely black eyes, no white, a long face, what I'm assuming to be a mouth, yet it was just like a line in its face where the mouth should have been. And it sort of had these long fingers that kind of was gripping the bin, I guess. The reason we got such a clear description of the thing was because it was poking its head out from behind the bin to stare at us. We decided to throw things at it or near the bin to see what it would do. It made a growling, screaming noise like an angry cat, but deeper. Then it stood up. It wasn't very tall or big, possibly a similar size to my cousins and I, who were 10 to 12 years old at the time. It then turned around, crouched down, and ran or bounded away on all fours back into the cane field. We told our parents and Grandma, who ultimately made a joke of it and didn't believe us. My cousins and I no longer play in that cane field. Several months later, that went into the new year, I was sent to Grandma's house again for the school holidays, and my cousins were dropped off as well. One night, we were in the back seat of Grandma's car. Grandma was driving while my uncle was in the passenger seat. While Grandma was reversing out, we all saw the thing crouching in the grass near the cane field. It was illuminated by the car lights. Our Grandma and Uncle thought it was a person, so Grandma turned the car side onto it. Our uncle rolled the window down to ask if they were okay. It then laid flat and straight, then put its face up. My uncle immediately put his window back up. It was the thing again, but this time instead of running and bounding away, it sort of slithered or shuffled backwards into the cane while staring at the car and lying down. My uncle and our Grandma went quietly while driving, then pretended it never happened. Even years later, they just try to say it never happened. It was a weird dog or a joke that a farmer's inbred kid. The last time I ever saw it was when my cousin and I were sitting on the ledge of Grandma's yard around sunset. We'd been talking for probably about an hour, and I felt as if we were being watched. However, there was no eerie feeling. We suddenly stopped talking and turned our heads to see it standing there, sort of poking out of the cane field, basically openly watching us. We weren't sure what to do, but my cousin moved his hands up, almost like a wave. It moved its hands similar, but still had its arm down and did it on the side. Then a car was coming down the road, so it darted back into the cane. I have no idea what this could have been. It seemed to just want to watch us more than anything. Though despite the abnormal appearance, it didn't seem malicious. We have no idea what it was, where it came from, why it was there, if it wanted to do anything with us, etc. We also couldn't talk to anyone about it because you'd certainly get made fun of or thought you were crazy. 5 people saw this thing. My cousins and I certainly saw it more than once, and it seemed to be mainly around when the cane was high. Wow, guys. 3 awesome stories. Story 1, crazy good. Crazy good description of the beast, out in the just wilderness. Can you just imagine, you're watching TV, your TV goes, you go to fix it, bam, Dogman, right in your face. How you doing? I'd get right back in the house too. Story 2. I shared that one because the werewolf Dogman legend of the 1900s and the albino Dogman. Just recently, there was a sighting of a albinoed Dogman in Pennsylvania. And I'm going to share that story with you guys sometime soon. Also, the last story just creeped me out to no end. Like when the kids, their grandma and uncle were leaving and the thing was just laying there and it looks up at him. I get goosebumps all over my back just thinking about that thing. Ugh. Why don't you guys in the comments below tell me what you think the third story was? Could it have been a rake? Could it have been an alien? Could it have been a figment of their imaginations? I don't think so, but I want to hear what you guys think. That was definitely a scary story. Thanks, guys, for all the support. You know I love you, and I'll see you guys tomorrow with another great encounter episode.